The Agras T100 is going to start arriving in Canada soon. When? We don't quite know yet, but as you've seen on our website, we're now taking pre-orders until September 7 with a $5,000 deposit. Before you make that kind of an investment, or certainly the full investment, you'll want to know a lot more about these drones. I've asked Dylan to do some more technical analysis on what this T100 will mean for the Canadian ag scene. It's no different in the Great Plains of the US, but when we're spraying quarter sections and half sections, our needs are a little different from odd-shaped fields and smaller fields. So with that in mind in particular, I've asked Dylan to kind of do a summary of everything that he's figured out. The bottom line is this is likely a 3 gallon per acre drone. It's going to do better at 3 gallon per acre than previous ones did, and it's actually a sweet spot, and he'll explain some of that later. It is also incredibly large, as you know, a 100-liter tank, and he'll go through some of those specs. And most importantly, the ROI from this thing is going to be amazing. The price is not that much higher than previous models. So for anyone that needs a large drone, this is going to be the one. And there's just a great fit for spraying full quarter sections. Keep in mind, of course, we don't yet have approved labels for herbicides, fungicides, insecticides for agriculture, but you can already use these for agriculture, generally for fertilizers or for some crop growth promotants. So Dylan, tell us a little bit about what you figured out so far in terms of the spray system in particular.
On the T100, one of the main differences, as I'm sure everyone's wanted to know, is that capacity. And on the T100, we're back to following that naming convention. You have a 100-liter tank, 100-kilogram payload on this drone. That means from a T50, you're getting 2.5 times the carrying capacity for spraying. And obviously this means more area that you can cover on one tank. But the other big benefit, as Marcus already mentioned, is you can now do higher water volume without having to sacrifice as much in your efficiency. The other big difference with the T100 is your application speed is gone from 36 kilometers an hour all the way up to 50 kilometers an hour now. So covering a lot more land in a lot less time. Now, how this actually ties into efficiency is while you are applying more, flying faster, your actual flight time is going to be pretty similar, which means you're covering more area in the same amount of time as you would have covered previously. And that means that you can hope to get up to 75 acres an hour now of coverage with the T100. Building on from that, as Marcus had already mentioned, this is going to be the 3 gallon per acre drone. More specifically, the sweet spot is right about 3.2 gallons per acre. And what that means is if you're applying a 10-meter wide pass at 50 kilometers an hour with 3.2 gallons per acre as an application rate, that full tank is going to cover about 8 acres in one tank. It'll spray that out in about 4 minutes. And the most important point is you're going to cover exactly 2 miles of distance. And what that means is if you're applying on a quarter section, you can go exactly to that quarter line and back twice. So you have 4 passes on a quarter section. If you're doing a full half section, you can go right from the end, do a full mile pass there and back. And that perfect sweet spot will both increase that efficiency that you're getting, because now you're not wasting extra time having to fly out to the middle of the field to start spraying or fly back from the middle of the field when you're done.
Okay, so that's spraying. What about spreading and the lifting system? There's a few new attachments for this thing.
With the T100, one of the changes that they made is now instead of swapping the tanks out, you're actually going to swap the whole system on the bottom half of the drone. And so by default, it's going to come with the spraying system, and that's what a lot of people are going to be using. But spreading and, as Marcus just mentioned, lifting is going to be another use case for this drone. And that's as simple as detaching the airframe, putting it onto a different system, and then you're ready to go. Now, those 2 other payloads I'm going to talk about briefly. We've got firstly the spreading system. And this spreading system is pretty similar to what the previous models are looking like for the actual distribution. So you're still working with a spinning disc to spread out those particles. However, one big change is instead of a disc meter, now we're actually shifted over to using an auger system. So that auger is going to be what's feeding the material to the actual distribution. And what that means is you can get a lot finer control over rates, and there's now going to be 4 different augers that can be installed in order to get even finer control for very small application or very high application. The second system that is now an option is the lifting system. And in Canada, we haven't really had much use for lifting with drones at this point, but it is something that as we get bigger drones that can carry more weight, there is a lot of different options out there of how you can use a lifting system in order to transport fairly heavy materials over a longer distance. And the other big benefit is, who doesn't want to be able to carry 100 kilograms with their drone?
One issue, Dylan, as drones get bigger, the charging capacity is always a big question. What are we going to need for charging capacity with this one as it compares to the previous models?
The T100, as with each new drone model as it comes out, there's also going to be new batteries and a new charger. For the T100, the official charger is going to be the C12000. And one big change with this charger that a lot of people have been taking notice of is we've now moved on to a 3-phase power requirement in order to run the charger for fast charging. And so that means in order to get that fast charging, that 8 to 9 minute charging time on those batteries, you're going to need a generator or other form of power that can provide you 3-phase power at 480 volts phase to phase and at least 15,000 running watts. And that is a pretty big requirement now in order to run these chargers. If you don't have that big of a generator, or you're not looking at getting something that big, there are still going to be alternative options. So the C10000, which was the charger that came out with the T50, as well as the C8000 came out with the T40, are still going to be compatible. DJI has released an adapter cable that will allow these older chargers to still connect to and charge the new batteries. However, the big downside of those older chargers is you are going to have a longer charging time. And if you're trying to cover big acres, that longer charging time is going to become a hindrance.
So how much longer are we talking with those older models?
Well, as I already mentioned, that 8 to 9 minutes is kind of the sweet spot that we've been at. Going back to a C10000, so that previous charger, you can run this with 240 volts still, but you'd be looking at likely 12 to 13 minutes now on a fast charge. If you go even further back to the C8000, you're now at half the charging capacity, and you're looking at 16 to 18 minutes in order to get a full charge on those batteries.
It's really not realistic, except perhaps as a second charger. I see scenarios if you're doing larger application or large acreage, where it makes sense to buy the C12000 with the T100. And if you still have a C8000 or C10000 there, that can be as a backup to be working on a second battery at the same time. So I see a good fit for multiple chargers here if your generator will allow it.
And I can definitely see how that'll work well. And even with a C12000 alone, if you're really efficient with your operations, that 8 to 9 minutes can become a hindrance in itself, where having that second charger will be beneficial no matter what, to make sure that you are constantly going and you don't have to stop and wait for batteries to charge.
So along with all those other improvements, one of the biggest things I think that people are looking forward to, especially for brush control type of projects, is the new LiDAR on there. What else is there in terms of that LiDAR? Explain that to us first of all, and then the obstacle detection and safety factors that are in this drone.
So there's been a few different changes with the T100. Same systems that we're used to, so radar and vision systems are still on there. However, they have been improved a little bit. So now, if anyone had a T50, you'll remember there was that rear radar on the back. That's actually gone now, and instead there's going to be both a lower and rear radar separated in this case. That lower radar is specifically just for terrain following. Front radars, same as it always has been. And then they've also added some more vision sensors all the way around the drone in order to get a full 360-degree view with those vision cameras. But the main one that everybody's looking at is that new LiDAR globe. Now, this LiDAR system, what it actually means for you is you're going to have a lot better capabilities of detecting, or I should say the drone is going to have a lot better capabilities of detecting small objects. So these are things like power lines, small branches, guide wires, all of these objects that have previously been more of a struggle for detection systems like radar and vision systems. This LiDAR system is going to improve those capabilities and allow the obstacle avoidance system to both act faster and also be more accurate. Now, another thing that this LiDAR system has added on to the drone is for those of you who are into brush control applications, because there's a LiDAR system on, you can now also do 3D LiDAR mapping with the Agras T100. And this will allow you to map small areas in a full 3D map and then create a 3D mission out of that that already has all of the obstacles, terrain differences, and everything pre-generated into that boundary. And then when the drone goes out and flies it, it already knows where everything is and it can apply it in the most efficient way possible.
Okay. Just following up on the brush control aspect, I do need to remind people that PMRA's position is that there needs to be explicit mention of a drone on label for that to be a legal application. So when it comes to pest control products only, not to fertilizers, not to growth promotants, but to pest control products, the label needs to read drone according to PMRA. Currently, there are only 4 such labels. There's 4 larvicides and 1 herbicide, but that's for industrial application only. That's Garlon XRT. And they take the position the others are not currently authorized. While we're talking about rules, one other rule that is significant. We thought the T100 might be considerably smaller than it is, but it's a monster, and it will come in at between 170 and 180 kilogram. I think total maximum takeoff weight is 177 kilograms. That puts it above the 150 kilogram limit for the new medium RPAS category. That category comes into effect on November 4 of this year. So drones like the T50, you won't need an SFOC for when you're operating it in rural areas. The T100 will continue to require an SFOC, a Special Flight Operations Certificate, from Transport Canada. That's something we can help with. We've started our process of getting an SFOC because we're hoping that we'll soon have a T100 here on the ground so we can test the reality of everything that Dylan has just analyzed is based on our paper review. I'm sure DJI has done a very thorough review themselves. We're going to test it here in Western Canada, especially things like spray width. 10 to 13 meters sounds amazing. We'll see how it measures up, and we'll do all that sometime soon as we get our hands on a demo unit. But in the meantime, you can reach out to us for more information. Thanks for joining us.